Hello there guys, this is Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in May and all of the books I'm going to read in June, or planning to read. You know, it's a pop, it's not a TBR, even though I'm probably still putting TBR on my video, but it's more of like a pile of possibilities because a lot of the things that I'm definitely going to be reading are for read-alongs, so those are already set. So other things are like more like mood reading. So let's jump into it. I'm really excited. And I forgot I was gonna paint my nails before coming on here. So while I'm talking, I may be also painting my nails. So first of all, I just want to talk about some music that just came out that I'm really excited about, and that is the new 80s album Work. Definitely check out the Work music video. The music video itself is super chaotic and fun, but the actual song is crazy. It has like this clarinet line that's really, really catchy. So definitely recommended it. They're also really leaning into Latin influence, which they've been doing more in their albums lately. And I think there must be a lot of Latin Heaney out there. So Heaney is the fandom name. So definitely check out Work. Their new music video is awesome. And then I also just found a song by Leo, who was part of the group Trainee A that was supposed to debut from Hybe a couple years ago now. And the project was canned. So Leo was the main rapper, the leader of the group. And he left the agency, and I don't know if that was the reason why the project was canned. I don't know if the other boys from the group are going to debut from a group from Hybe, with a group from Hybe, but anyways, they are Hybe is the group that put out BTS. So they also have Le Sserafim and New Jeans, and they're just breaking ground all the time. They just had two new groups just come out, Boy Next Door and Illit. So, but anyways, Leo just came out with he debuted as a solo artist several months ago, like 6 months ago, and I didn't realize it. I didn't see him come out as a solo artist, but a new music video that he just put out. He just put out a couple new music videos, but my favorite is the performance video for One Look and a song that came out while he was still a trainee at Hybe, and that one's called Move On. So I'll link all the music that I just mentioned in the description down below if you want to check out what I'm listening to right now. It's very soulful. I love it. Move On is so great. It's about Leo's feelings when a friend of his from the agency, Hybe, was cut from the program, and he had to leave the group, and Leo was really close friends with him. So it's about his attempt to kind of move on with his artistic career, because basically if you end up with a group, that's going to be like your brothers for the next 10-15 years, however long the group ends up staying together. That's who you're going to be mostly living with, collaborating with. And so if somebody gets cut from the group, it's like you're losing an arm or a leg, you know, somebody that was very close with you. So anyways, okay, moving on. I finished, first of all, Esther this month, which is a book of the Bible about actually, I finished this not this last month, but I forgot to talk about it earlier in the year when I finished it with my Bible study. We did Daniel, and now we're in Esther. We did Daniel, and then we finished Esther. And now we are in John. So we're reading John. I'm also reading Revelation. But we finished Esther. It's about an Israelite queen, a Jewish queen, who ends up as a queen of Persia, and how the Jews were targeted by like a historical enemy of the Jews, and how basically there was going to be a genocide of the Jews, and how Esther saved the lives of her Jewish countrymen by giving them a lawful ability to fight back in self-defense, which they didn't have previously. They just were going to have to be killed, basically. So yeah, it's about Queen Esther preventing a genocide. Very strong woman story. So Jenny really loved Esther. So if that's something you're interested in reading like Jenny, I definitely recommend Esther. It's one of the very story-based books of the Bible. It's a bit of a rough timing right now to be reading it, I think, because of the war right now in Gaza. So if that's something you're really sensitive to, then maybe wait on this one. But it's a great story anyways. Okay, next, Shanghai Girls by Lisa C. It looks so small, doesn't it? But it's actually really long. Like, this is a really long, it was like, was it 14 hours or something? But well worth enjoying. It took me over a month to listen to it, which is, I've been finishing stuff. I was finishing stuff pretty quickly for a while, but anyways, it starts off like really fun. These two sisters in Shanghai living very carefree, modern girl lives. They consider themselves different from the previous generations of Chinese women who were viewed as like less valuable than men, because, and there's an interesting quote at the very beginning here. I consider myself to be a modern Shanghai girl. I don't want to believe in all that obey, obey, obey stuff girls were taught in the past. But the truth is, May, her sister, as much as they adore her, her parents adore May. May and I are just girls. No one will carry on the family name, and no one will worship our parents as ancestors when the time comes. My sister and I are the end of the chin line. So, yeah, that was interesting. I didn't realize that was why women were traditionally less valued, particularly in Chinese culture. That was true across all cultures for different reasons, but I didn't know that it had something to do with ancestors wanting their descendants to worship them after their death. So that was very interesting, but also carrying on the family line. I think that's something that was common across a lot of cultures, that women were less valued for that reason. So this was such a gripping story of how these girls, I think it's around World War II, is when this is taking place, because they end up, their lives are changed drastically by the war, and the choices that they make and the choices that are made for them about their lives are such huge, drastic choices, like relating to pregnancy and childbirth and moving across different countries and who, it's like major life choices. Because it's a whole life story, you see the choices that they make and how they affect their lives. And it reminds me a lot of Deerbrook in that way. If you guys have read Deerbrook, which is a Victorian novel by Harriet Martineau, where it's like, it really goes there. Like, a character makes a choice to marry someone in that book, and you're like, was that a good choice to marry that person? Like, it's a big question mark of whether that was a good choice for the character in Deerbrook to marry that person. And these girls and the people who are controlling them make multiple choices like that, where you're like, was that a good decision? And you see the results of those decisions. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought the characterization was interesting. I thought it was well done. The second book, I immediately jumped into Dreams of Joy, which is the second book, because I was so gripped, and there's a major cliffhanger at the end of this book. But Dreams of Joy, the characterization wasn't there in the same way. I'm fascinated by the story of the setting of Dreams of Joy. It actually is set in communist China, and following a character from this book who comes in later into the book. But also following one of the characters from this book. So I was interested in it initially, but it's longer even than this one, and their characterization didn't really seem to be there as much, even though the setting is possibly even more fascinating to me than this setting. I thought this one was done better. So it's about their bond as sisters, and it's kind of literary historical fiction, and I really enjoyed it. So I read this for the TBR Clear Out readathon, which wasn't this month, but I finished it this month. But this was one, I forget what prompt I was using it for, but I'm really glad, I was really grateful for Katie from Books and Things doing the TBR Clear Out readathon, so that I finally got a chance to read this, and I really did enjoy it. It was one of those ones that I've had for like over a decade. It's just been sitting on my shelves. And I got it at a library book sale, and I've been wanting to read it for forever. And somebody in my library book club recently mentioned it, loving this author. So she has several other books that I'm interested in reading as well, since I'm trying to get into historical fiction a little bit. So that was a great place for me to start. I really, really did enjoy it. Okay, so, but I DNF'd Dreams of Joy. So I DNF'd a lot of things this month. Okay, I also DNF'd Children of God by Mary Doria Russell, which I am very surprised that I ended up DNFing this because I was really enjoying it at first. But this is book 2 in a science fiction Jesuit sci-fi series, following some Jesuit priests who go to a different planet on like a mission from God to basically to connect Earth with this planet and start communicating with the humans. Also, I'm sick, so if I lose my voice, that's things I might have to finish tomorrow or something, but I'm gonna try to finish. So yeah, I ended up, I was really enjoying the beginning of this, even though there's sort of a love triangle sort of developing, which made me nervous. I don't really like love triangles, but actually I ended up DNFing it because it didn't have the same sort of interesting theological conversations and the nuance about religion that the first book did. In my opinion, it was a little bit, I'm trying to remember, there was a lot of really unexpected things happening, like plot-wise, it was interesting, but then it hit a lull plot-wise somewhere around, where was the last point that I left off? I want to say I was in the 40%, somewhere in there, maybe a little further. Maybe even long, but it ended up feeling like really long. Plot-wise, it sort of slumped. And I just wasn't excited about it anymore. Yeah, the religious portrayals just weren't as successful, so I ended up DNFing it. So unfortunately, yeah, it didn't live up to the second one. At the beginning, I thought it was going to live up to the second one, and then it just didn't after that. Really a shame, because in the first book, the anthropology of the alien cultures was really interesting. But the second book doesn't explore that as much. Like, you get to see the same cultures, but there aren't like any new cultures, and I don't know, it just felt less successful overall, less interesting. Okay, I also DNF'd my third DNF, The Spirit Level by Seamus Heaney. I've been trying to get into poetry, but I think this was the wrong time to do it. I had a little lull in between things that I was reading for readathons, and I thought, okay, cool, I will get to some poetry now, but I ended up being too stressed out because I was having some health problems around that time, so I just couldn't focus, and poetry takes a lot from me. It just takes a lot from me. So I have to be able to really focus and enjoy it every, like, word by word, rather than like big picture stuff. So I really liked the way he used words, but most of his poems just made no sense to me, and I was like, I'm gonna have to reread these multiple times, and I probably still don't have the right context because I don't really know anything about Seamus Heaney except that he translated Beowulf, and I think he's Irish. But it was an improvement above boring because they gave me something to think about, which some of the poetry I was reading before this, I just was like, no, this is just boring. It wasn't boring, I was just confused. And I have a low tolerance for confusion right now because I'm already reading some heavy stuff like History of the Russian Revolution, and that's taking all of my puzzling brain. Like, that takes all of my energy. That and like Revelation, and I'm just reading some heavy stuff right now. So, but I just read like 4 or 5 of the poems in the collection in a row, and they weren't doing anything to me. So that's a DNF for me, unfortunately. I have to be enjoying more than 1 out of 6 poems. Next, Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands. This was the last book for Victoria's Patreon, and I actually really enjoyed this. The beginning, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to because it's very descriptive. It's very description heavy. And for me, reading descriptions, even though I think they're brilliant and there's something there that I definitely enjoy, I have to work really hard to read descriptions because there's no character to follow in the description, if you know what I mean. It's much easier for me to read something if it's about a person or a character, and that's just not the case in descriptions. However, she has a real gift for expression. Like, the way she paints a particular place where she visited is really, really spot on. So if I can, let's see, I had some quotes. I posted a quote in my Goodreads review. If you want an example of her writing, I definitely recommend checking out my Goodreads review. And if I remember, I will post it as well in my community tab so that you can read it there, because I don't think I have the voice to read it today. I'm already like struggling a little bit. So I definitely didn't follow the details very well of this on audio. However, I was so interested because she ends up in Crimea during the war. And that was fascinating. I don't know that much about the war in Crimea, but I definitely want to learn more about it now. And I bet if I did go on to study about the war in Crimea, I would want to read that part of the book physically, just to kind of get her firsthand account of what it was like there. I found that really interesting. Yeah, and I just really she was also a doctor. That's part of why she was there in Crimea. So I didn't even say, this was an a Jamaican woman traveling the world, meeting some racism in some places. And like I said, beautiful gift for expression. The things people say about her skin color were just like, really? Here's like I didn't realize that, I won't share the quote here, but yeah. So anyways, I did really, really enjoy it. So definitely check out the quote if you're interested in learning what her style is kind of like. Check out the quote in my Goodreads review or my community tab page. Next, Attack on Titan Volume 11. My only comment here was, how is it that I have more questions with every volume? Cry face. But it was like a happy cry face. I think that this volume, there was less questions answered, but I had a whole long talk with Tiffany about it, and we're having the greatest time. I keep screenshotting like fight scenes and like big revelations and character moments, and it's like very profound at times, which is something I love about manga. It makes profound thought very accessible. Even on my worst reading days, a lot of times I can still pick up a volume of Attack on Titan and really enjoy it. So yeah, I don't have any of the screenshots saved anymore, so I can't share all of my thoughts on it, but so good. I'm just loving it. I think it's taken over the new place of my favorite manga series. So next, I forgot I was going to show you what it looks like. Yes. Okay. So, this is volume 11. As you can see, there's a big fight going on between two titans. The titans they eat humans, and there's a big question about why they eat humans, because they don't have digestive tracts. So it's like, do they just do it for fun? Like, why do they eat humans? So there was some intense fighting in this one, and I think that Tiffany, she was feeling a bit slumpy, so I think she didn't enjoy this volume as much. But I definitely enjoyed it. So, okay, next we'll do Hannah Coulter by Wendall Berry. I've been wanting to read this for forever, and I meant to buddy read it with a friend, but then we haven't been able to talk about it, so hopefully I don't forget everything before we talk about it. But this is about the wife of the man Nathan Coulter, who the first book in this series is about, and I think there's at least one intervening book, Jaber Crow, and maybe another one in between this book and that book, but I'm not really worried about reading it in order, because Nathan Coulter I thought was good, but I wasn't like, oh, I need to read all of the books just like this one. Beautiful. His writing really feels like home, because he writes about the country, and I grew up from about age 9 in a pretty rural area, and I still live in a pretty rural area, the same rural area. So I grew up in a city until I was 9, and then we moved to this rural area. And his writing really reminds me of that. It is a farming community where I live, and his writing is set in like a farming community around the time when everything changes from like family farms changing over to bigger, more like industrial farming, and farmers like leaving farming communities and taking different types of jobs. So he definitely has an agenda in this book, as he does, I think, in a lot of his books, but it is really beautiful. The writing's really beautiful. And I think I rated it 3 stars. Like, I really did enjoy it. And I think he's very, like, anti-technology. So I just would say it's, like, a really beautiful story. And I just don't know that I need to, like, read more from him, though, other than maybe a couple essays. Because, like, I get what he's trying to say. I got it, Wendell Berry. I understand what you're saying now. So, yeah, grief, love, character growth, and the sneakily destructive power of technology. That's mainly what it's about. It does sometimes feel more like a man writing a woman than a woman telling about her life story, but not all the time. There's just times where it's like, this doesn't quite feel like a woman, but I think it is very a moving portrait of grief, which is why my friend recommended it. Okay, next we have Escargot by Dashka Slater. Dashka Slater is the one who wrote she wrote the memoir about the racist social media account, Accountable, that's what it's called, for teenagers. It was about some high schoolers who were posting really racist things on social media and how it affected their lives in the future, and also the women that they were targeting, like the black girls they were targeting with their racist account. And so this is totally something different. Super fun story about a snail. Stephanie recommended this to me from a searcher's read, so thank you, Stephanie. I really enjoyed this. It's about a snail who doesn't like carrots, but he ends up making a salad and ends up trying carrots and enjoying the carrots in the end. And it's really cute. The illustrations are really cute, so I enjoyed this a lot. And then next, I forgot to grab this off of my shelves, but somewhere over there, over the rainbow, I have the manga of The Tale of Genji, which I rated very low. I'll pull up the picture here. It's by Tuttle Publishing, who's published a lot of good stuff. They also have their own translation of the actual novel, which, by the way, I started last night, and I am really enjoying the first chapter of The Tale of Genji. So just 10 and a half chapters to go. So this manga, though, has actually a really low rating on Goodreads, and I DNF'd it about halfway through, because even though the art style is really beautiful, I don't really like Genji, and, it's a story about Genji. And I'm hoping that the novel is supposed to have a lot of psychological depth and beautiful poetry, and some of the poetry was excerpted in here, but I'm, as we've established, not a super big poetry person. So it's basically about how a nobleman in Japan seduces a bunch of women, and it's all about his seduction tactics, and it's just not that interesting for me to read about. But I think in the novel, it will be more psychologically interesting than the manga. The manga was not psychologically interesting at all. It was just woman after woman. Every couple pages, there was another woman that he was seducing, and how he seduces her, and whether she's pretty or ugly, and what her social station is. And, it was just like, okay, not interesting to me personally. And I think there's also something really kind of didn't age well. Ew, gross. Didn't age well in his seduction. And that, I think, is why it has a really low rating on Goodreads, because everybody was like, what the heck? What? This did not, why are we, like, why is this a class? But I think the novel probably will handle things more delicately, and it was a different time. It was just a different time, and you have to realize that. But it's still really awkward. Yeah, so I DNF'd this, unfortunately, but I did really think that the art style was beautiful, and I'm looking forward to the book. So yeah, my spoilery summary was, it's a bored rich guy seducing every woman, and I won't say the spoiler. So okay, next, Attack on Titan Volume 12. I accidentally read this, and I say accidentally because I thought that Tiffany and I were going to read it, And then I was like, oh no, before she had responded about whether she or not she was going to be able to get to it, I was like, we're meeting in 2 days, and if I'm going to read it, I need to start now. So I finished it, and then when we met, she was like, I didn't have time to read it. So I was like, oh, okay, well, at least I'm done. So now I have my screenshots from this, and I'm very excited to talk about it because I took so many screenshots of this one. Wow. Yeah, so this is volume 12, and it's pretty epic. There's a big fight scene, and I loved it. It was so good. So, loving that. Next, I forgot to pull up another book, but it's called the Kpop The Ultimate Fan Book. And this is a book that I ordered in order to learn about older K-pop groups, because I know a lot of 4th gen and now 5th gen groups, and I don't know a lot of groups prior to that. So because I like it's not really coming up. I don't really know why it's not coming up, but it was a good book for. I'll like put the exact title down below so that you guys can look it up if you're interested. Pretty short book. I don't know why it's not coming up, but I think there's just a lot of books about K-pop on Amazon. But it definitely, it didn't include some of my favorite groups that are 4th gen. So that was like surprising. I was like, why aren't they here? But it did include a lot of my favorites, and I did learn a lot about like earlier groups. And I took a bunch of screenshots of, or a bunch of pictures of, they had like top 10 lists of each group, like their best music videos, which was really cool. So I have like a whole series of like the top 10 lists that I'm going to check out so that I can get to know older groups. So like Sao Taji and Girls' Generation, I know several Girls' Generation songs, of course, but Big Bang, I know several Big Bang songs, of course. Shiny, of course, I know several. Psy, I know several. So I knew several songs, but their top 10 lists interested me because they often had ones at the top that I was like, really? That's the one you would rate like number 1? So I was like, they had Mama for EXO as the number 1 EXO video, and I was like, really? Like, I love Mama, but I never heard anyone be like, this is my top. Like, I mean, Jenny and I talked about it and we both loved it, but that's number 1? And they don't even have like, I mean, they have Growl at number 5. Why is Growl number 5? Like, as Jenny and I talked about, Growl is like my national anthem. It's so good. Anyways, Oblomov by Ivan Goncharov is the next thing that I DNF'd. I feel like Notes from the Underground did something similar to this, only did it better. Not as long. I just felt like this novel was supposed to be really funny, and I did not find it funny. It's about a man who is a noble and never developed an inner locus of self-control, and so he just stays in bed for like the first 10% of the book. He can't like make decisions for himself and direct his own life choices. Like, it's just like, that's not really super fun to read about, in my opinion. And I'm guessing the translation didn't help. Tiffany mentioned, I bet you read this with Tiffany and Stephanie, and they both enjoyed an audio translation audiobook that was on Hoopla. So maybe I'll try that, because I was just listening to the free one on YouTube, you know, that like for the translation that's available on Gutenberg. And that translation didn't do anything for me. Somebody actually recommended the Stephen Pearl translation for its actual prose, so I would be open to trying that, because witty prose can make up for a lot of failings. Like with the Vicar of Wakefield, I rated that 5 stars, even though not everybody loved the ending, because the writing is so delicious. And I was reading the Hogarth translation. That's the one I was reading. And it has a ridiculously high rating on Goodreads. It's like a 4.1. Not that that's like incredibly high, but it's a pretty high rating on Goodreads. And there's 39,000 ratings. And then on Amazon, there's 400 plus ratings of 4.2 average. So I am apparently alone in my dislike of it. Except there was I read a couple of reviews of people who didn't like it, and one of them was like, this is more for Tolstoy readers, and I'm a Dostoevsky reader. And I was like, well, that makes me feel better. It's nothing like Dostoevsky. I would say Tolstoy also is better, even though I've also DNF'd Tolstoy. I actually preferred Tolstoy quite a bit to this. This was just very plain and not that funny. However, Oblomovism is interesting, and it is important to understand if you're interested in Russian literature. Oblomovism is kind of like what I was saying, the nobleman who has no locus of self-control, because basically he's been raised to make the serfs do everything for him, the servants. So basically he just lays around and does nothing. And that's like a type. That's like a Russian character type, apparently, that people find to be accurate. So maybe people who feel this about Russian culture at this time, they liked the book for that reason. Okay, moving on. The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I just finished this one last night. So good, so big. Definitely worth rereading. I've been reading this with holy moly. This book is $46.99 in Canada. So I read this with a read-along that I'm doing with Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia. She's the creator, and Victoria Musical Bookworm, and Rich Freeman, and Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads. And we just had our first live show over on Tiffany's channel, so I'll link that down below if you're interested in checking it out. This was great. This was so fun to reread. I actually just listened to it, and this time around I was really invested in Vin and Ellen's relationship, and basically, it's about a thieving crew who runs a heist on the Lord Ruler of their planet, or at least their country. And basically, they're going to steal his stores of a particular metal that, if they ingest, it helps them to see what their enemy that they're fighting, what he's going to be doing. It like shows you like his next move so that you can beat him. So yeah, it's a high fantasy, great intro place to get into Brandon Sanderson, even though this isn't, it took me a long time to get into this the first time I read it. I think because the characterization takes some time to build up. Like, he starts with world building and the magic system, and that's what he details the most in this book. But every book is a little different. In most of Brandon Sanderson's stories, he'll focus on different things in every book. So if you're not a huge fan of, how one book went, you might love the next book. That's kind of a risky thing that he does, but I actually appreciate it because, like in this case, I didn't really care about the particular magic system that he develops in book one, and I wished that he'd focus more on characters, but there was character development here. And this time, since I've reread this is my third time reading it, I really saw the character development more so now than I did because he builds on it in future books. So I can see how far that person comes and has come by the start of the book to the end of the book. So, yeah, if you try this and you didn't make it to like the 3/4 mark, I would say keep going if you can. Just get it on audiobook and, dash through it on audio, because the ending is where Brandon Sanderson shines. Every book, he has a Sanderlanche, is what we call it, trademarked. Brandon Sanderson is really good at endings because he outlines everything. So sometimes if you're like plodding a bit through it, you're halfway through, you're like, why am I reading this? Try waiting till the ending because it all comes together in such an amazing way, and then decide if he's for you or not. If by the end you're still not convinced, then I would say maybe try a different series or just move on from him. But if you are like kind of waiting, and if you're kind of like, it's like a 3-star book, not hating it but not loving it, try waiting till the ending because the ending might make it a 5-star book for you. Loved reading this. More thoughts in that live show with Tiffany. Okay, next. We went on vacation to Las Vegas this last week. And I read the first short story of G.K. Chesterton's The Complete Father Brown stories. And the first story is called The Blue Cross. I really enjoyed this. This is very heady. mystery stories, following a priest who isn't, you don't think he's going to be that important in this story until the ending, and you see why he's important at the end of the first story. And if I can, I want to continue these because the priestly humor is really funny. Like, it's actually really genuinely funny. However, now that I'm reading so many long books for read-alongs, I don't know how I'm going to fit this in because it's not something you can just breeze through easily. Like, it's not like a Lord Peter Wimsey mystery where you're just like, oh yeah, this is fun, I'm just going to enjoy it. Like, it's kind of heady. And it takes some effort to read. And I'm usually not like, I'm going to put a lot of effort into reading this mystery short story. You know, I'm usually like, I'm going to put a lot of effort into like the history of the Russian Revolution or something like that. So I really enjoy these, but I feel like it's either not the right time or I'm not the right reader for these, even though it's totally enjoyable. And like, I literally rate the story 5 stars. I just don't know when I'll be able to actually continue with these. But I buddy read it with Rainey from Rainy Day Reads, so I'm really eager to hear what she thought of this first story. This was perfect for on vacation though, because you just need a physical book that you can read without an audiobook. And I tried reading this with an audiobook and it didn't work. I can't focus. Like, I miss everything. So yeah, I really did enjoy that, but I don't know when I'll be able to continue. Okay, next, The Fox Wife by, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing this right, but Yangsze Choo. So this is a book set in Manchuria following a fox. Is it a 9-tailed fox? I don't think it's a 9-tailed fox, but there is fox lore fox god. That's what it's called in this book, a fox god. There's different lore surrounding foxes in like a lot of different Asian nations. It's like a cult of worship. And so we're seeing the Manchurian version of the foxes in this story. And we're following this woman here on the front. What's her name? Snow. Snow is her name. Her child, a fox cub, was killed. And she is hunting down the hunter who killed her baby, basically. And there's 2 other foxes that are really heavily involved in the story. And I would think I would rate this about a 3-star. This is like a really new book, and it was really enjoyable and easy to read. It wasn't easy to follow on audiobook at first, but the second half of it I was able to just listen to, which really helped me out. So it took me a long time to read this, but it was like really nice to just have something easy to read in the evenings after spending the mornings with the history of the Russian Revolution. So it was just like the right time for me to read this. Otherwise I might not have normally finished it because it was just okay. But it was interesting, like, her setting details of Manchuria were really interesting and very, like, short and very lucid. Like, you could get a lot out of one line of description that she gives you about Manchuria. And it was fun learning about the fox god mythology. So yeah, and there was 2 perspectives. One is following Snow, and then the other is following a man who can taste if someone is lying to him. So that was interesting, but I didn't really care about his perspective that much. Bao was his name. I just didn't really care. So it was kind of sweet. It actually ended up being more cozy than I anticipated. I thought it was going to be like this murder mystery historical fiction, and it ended up just, it was those things, but it was like definitely more cozy than I was anticipating. And I'm buddy reading this with Dia and Victoria, and Dia is now reading it. All of our holds, our whole library holds were coming in at different times. So, but I think Victoria will get to this soon because it's a book of the month book for her. And she's been like blitzing through those lately, which is awesome. So, and now that it's summertime, hopefully Victoria will have time. We'll see. Okay, next. Okay, my camera might die, but I'll fix it if it does. Okay, next, I finished The Order of the Phoenix, the illustrated Harry Potter. It got a little bit beat up because it took me a long time. It probably took me like a year to read this, but this was fantastic. Like, the illustrations are insane. They're just so good. Highly recommend these illustrated editions. I can't remember if Penny gave me this one or if she gave me the 4th one. But anyways, wonderful people that I just love have given me these editions. This one might have actually been from Kevin's brother. But anyways, I'm really sad that the author who was illustrating these, McKay, he's not going to be continuing with books 6 and 7, which I'm really sad about because these were so amazing. But maybe they'll pick somebody else who has more energy for the job, more mental space for the job, and can finish it up well. This was fabulous, though. I loved it. I love Harry Potter. I'm a big Potterhead fan. Actually, I wouldn't say I've like joined the fandom or anything, like in the sense that I wrote Harry Potter fan fiction or anything like that. But I've loved Harry Potter ever since I was a kid. So super nostalgic for me. Okay, moving on to the TBR, and some of these I'm already starting, but I'm really planning on going through this month. So this month I'm going to be meeting with Emma from the Bookish Princess on Zoom, and we're going to discuss Maps of Meaning, which I'm really excited about. So I have started this one, and Jordan Peterson, his first chapter is just so gripping. It might be a little bit heady for me. I might not be able to finish it by the time we're meeting in the month, but I think it's going to be worth reading. I'm really interested in, it's like symbology, I think, is something he's really interested in. Like the symbolism and what it means to humans through in different mega stories, themes, psychology, stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to switch to my other camera battery. Okay, next, Banned Book Club by Kim Hyun-suk and Ryan Estrada. I might try to reread this because I'm going to be interviewing Ryan Estrada on my channel for K-Tripathon, and we're just going to make it into a live show. So this is a really short manga. It's a young adult manga about the power of reading to impact a person's mind and help them grow up and make decisions for themselves. And yeah, it's following Kim Hyun-suk. So it's a graphic memoir, actually, of Kim Hyun-suk, who is married to Ryan Estrada. They live in Korea, South Korea. And she was a student under Korea's Fifth Republic, which was a dictatorship, and a military dictatorship. And it kind of talks about her experience. It's like a fictionalized school so that they can protect people's names and stuff like that. So some of the details are fictionalized so that identities are protected, basically. But yeah, it's her memoir. And how reading, certain things were banned under this military dictatorship so that they weren't aware that they weren't living in a democracy, basically. Like, they weren't allowed to read any political writings that talked about democracy. So like really important things were banned. And so she ends up being pulled into a banned book club where she's reading books that are banned under the dictatorship. And basically these students are having to pick up where their parents left off because their parents were beaten into submission by different powers in South Korean history. There was after the Japanese pulled out of Korea after the colonial period ended, and the war with North Korea ended, sort of, even though there's been no peace treaty. A series of dictators took over South Korea, and it's talking about one of those dictatorships. So this was fabulous, and I got a whole list of books to check out after I'm done. And so I'm going to either try to reread this or just do some side research so that I can interview the author. So if you want to read this with us and talk about it with us, please join us. This is a sort of read-along announcement. Okay, next, I'm also doing a read-along sort of semi of Heaven by Mieko Kawakami. And actually next weekend, I'm going to be doing a live show here on my channel with Alana Estelle and Michi from Heart of Michi. So Alana picked out the book this time. And yeah, this is my first buddy read with Alana, so that's been really fun. And this is really easy reading, which is nice, because I'm already reading heavy stuff. But it's not like fun. It's really intensely sad at times. It's about bullying and how friendship can kind of heal your heart from the wounds that were created by bullying. We're following 2 middle schoolers who are bullied and find hope in their friendship with each other, and talking about what like heaven means. And I just think it's beautiful in some ways and terrifying in other ways. Yeah, there was a really great quote that I shared, I think on Instagram. Maybe I can pull it up for you guys. But yeah, I would definitely recommend reading this if you haven't and joining us, because it's Japanese literature and I'm finally reading more of it. I've been wanting to read more. Actually, Una from the Codex Cantina recommended reading this. And so that's why I wanted to read it. And I wanted to read it for so long. And then when Alana suggested that this be our next book, I was very excited. Okay, I don't have the quote available anymore, but it's really good. So I'll put the quote in my Goodreads review once that goes up. Should go up before too long because I'm almost done with it. Oh, I forgot to mention, I might DNF My Antonia by Willa Cather, but I don't know. I feel like I want to keep giving it a shot because Tiffany said it does, like, the beginning is a series of kind of like sketches about when these characters are young, and I've just realized lately I'm not really interested in reading about young characters so much. I really want books that are dealing with more adult themes, and I think this will probably get there, and the writing is really beautiful, but I'm just not finding myself super invested in it and not really caring. So I guess the difference between this series of character sketches and like the Death of the Archbishop character sketches, because that's the complaint that I've seen about Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather. That one, the plot is in the title. It's about the death of the Archbishop and his life up until that death, and it's like a very interesting life to me, whereas this, it's just like some kids living on the plains and being friends. You know, it's fine. It's not hitting for me, unfortunately. I was really that was on my 5-star predictions mental list. I've never actually made a 5-star predictions list, but mentally I was thinking that would be it. Okay, The Girl Who Kept the Castle by Ryan Grodin, which my phone fell down there. Otherwise, I would show you the beautiful cover art of this. I'm really excited. I have an e-arc to listen to of this month, and I'm so excited to listen to it. I've been waiting for it. The author is super sweet. She emailed me, and also Tiffany, and maybe more of you as well. She may have emailed multiple other people as well about reading this book as it comes out, and she compared it to Howl's Moving Castle and said it's a cozy fantasy. So I'm so excited to read it, and I will let you know how it goes. If I can, I'm going to do a book review. But if not, I'm just letting you know that's coming. So I'm hoping if Tiffany ends up reading this for her Patreon pick this month, I'm going to reread this with her because I love Howl's Moving Castle. Okay, next, I might be reading The Gambler with Faith and Peg, although I haven't put out my video yet on Notes from the Underground, because it's been so sunny out that I've just been spending all my free time sitting out on the deck instead of editing videos. So hopefully I'll get to that eventually. I also just really do not have time to edit videos anymore. I did one video this month because I had to. I didn't have a choice. It was either that or lose the footage. But that actually came out of my work time to edit the video on reading the Bible. Why I read the Bible. So I can't take time out of my workday in order to just edit fun videos. I cannot do it. Next, Unnatural Death by Dorothy L. Sayers, which I want to read to fit a mystery prompt on, I think it's a cozy mystery prompt on Tiffany's summer book bingo. This is like my favorite Lord Peter Wim's mystery, and I want to reread it. It just sounds fun. Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton is Emma's Bookish Kingdom book club pick this month, so if I can, I'd like to get to that. Tale of Genji, that read-along kicks off today, June 1st. Woo! I've already started that, and I was originally also planning to take a Coursera course for reading a Greek classic for Ancients-a-thon. Plutarch's Lives. I was thinking to learn about Plutarch's Lives, but I don't think that Ancients-a-thon is happening right now. I was thinking that it was going to, but it doesn't look like it's going to. So maybe because Jenny is gone. I don't know. She might have been the impetus behind it. I think it's Tori from Good Strong Words who creates it along with David Wiley. The Trial by Kafka with Stephanie and Tiffany. This is one of my buddy reads this month, which is nice. I don't think it's super long. At least I hope it's not super long. And then The Well of Ascension, which I'm a little bit nervous about because I don't have the audiobook. Ow. So hopefully I can read it physically. I don't know. I don't really want to buy the audiobook because it's like $15. But as you can see, I have a lot of notes on it, so I guess maybe I could just review it that way, but that would be kind of a shame to not actually be able to read it. So we'll see if I have time to read it physically or not. Otherwise, I might just have to buy the audiobook. Shogun by James Clavell. I'm buddy reading this with my mother-in-law. I'm still only in chapter 2. So, like I said, I'm reading a lot of long books at the moment, but that is on my list to read. And once I finish reading my full read-through of Revelation, hopefully by the end of this month, I'm going to plan to read Paul's letters with Faith's new Discord server, which I will also link down below if you're interested. Faith is doing a series of Christian read-alongs in this wonderful Discord server that she just set up, so I'm really excited for that. And I just love reading with Faith, and I just love Faith, so I hope you'll join us for some of those as well. That's it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed this wrap-up TBR. Let me know down below what you are reading and enjoying right now, or what your favorite thing that you read last month is, or what you're most excited about next month, if you're taking part in any of the read-alongs that I'm doing with BookTube here and BookTube Friends. And I also I don't know if you can see the smiley face in the background. I now have a smiley face rug in my room. That's it. Thanks so much for watching. Take care until next time.